The Masters of Engineering Management program is a degree that helps working engineers learn the business and leadership skills they need to lead technical companies into the future.
So what we do is we walk through the process of preparing them to make decisions, move up the corporate ladder, recognizing that they're never going to have all the facts, they're never going to have all the information or all the time they need to render that decision. So develop that skill set to rely more and more on intuition for high quality decisions.
Quality has got two parts of the definition, one being meeting and exceeding customer needs now and in the future. And the second is the process excellence that makes you reliable. You do it right the first time, and you reduce rework, you reduce cycle time, you reduce cost, and you reduce opportunity for harm or error.
The world is changing where the problems are no longer easily defined. And so what we do in the Masters of Engineering Management program is we take people that have an analytic background, that know how to solve problems and have used these kinds of methods to solve problems, and we teach them at a higher level, bring them to the bigger picture where they can now identify what the problems are. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal recently that shows that company founders and CEOs are 3 times more likely to have an engineering degree than to have an advanced business degree.
But as Wayne Gretzky, that great hockey player, said, the reason he stood out and differentiated himself is when all the other big guys were skating to where the puck was, he skated to where the puck was going to be. So I think here at Northwestern University in our MEM program, we're kind of getting ahead of where that puck is going to be. We're going to be there when that puck gets there. So we're teaching a technical basis foundation. We're preparing technical people for the C-suite, for management. We're doing it in an environment that is geographically diverse and very rich in its international body.
There are 2 keys to solving the complex problems of the future. One is knowledge, and knowledge is derived from study. You have to have data, and you have to be able to use analytic, rigorous methods to get the knowledge from that data. In addition, you also have to have leadership and innovation skills. The MEM student will benefit from McCormick's culture of using both sides of the brain, both the analytic, the rigorous data analysis side, but also the leadership, creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial side of their brains.
Corning is, first of all, they are an outstanding brand.
It's a company that's based on technology. It's a company that has learned that making their processes both in control and understandable to the highest level decision makers is critical for their success.
We have to realize this is a 160-year-old company.
This is a company that was founded a decade before the United States Civil War. They are in a space all by themselves. This is a remarkable company.
They won the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award in '95, which is something that fewer than 100 companies have done in the history of that award since 1989. So they are recognized around the globe as one of the premier quality players, not only in their industry, but in any industry.
We have a history of incredible innovations, some life-changing innovations, a history of them. Things like, well, we worked with Thomas Edison on the original light bulb. At one point in time, 98% of the light bulbs in the world were produced on Corning technology.
There is a scene in the new book about Stephen Jobs by Walter Isaacson, in which Jobs is approaching Corning because he wants a glass front that's really, really resistant to scratches, dents, and whatnot. And he wanted them to make it because he knew that only they had the kind of technology and reputation that he could have confidence in. So now we see Gorilla Glass on the fronts of all kinds of personal devices, computers, and so on.
They've been involved in research and development for over 100 years. There's only 5 companies in the United States of America that can tout a 100-year history of R&D. Do people even know what it was? 100 years ago, people couldn't even tell you what the R or the D stood for, yet here was a company funding it.
So in between those bookends of Thomas Edison and Steve Jobs, they have also invented just about everything worth inventing in glass.
One of the problems that we've had as a company is that kind of inherent to the innovation process is these great innovations make a lot of money, but then they all mature, and as they mature, competition enters. And so at that point in time, the game's different. It's not so much about innovation, it becomes a lot about your ability to compete. And so the thing we struggled with at Corning was our ability to compete as products matured. And so that was the focus of the quality renewal. Can we actually become a powerful manufacturing company as well as a powerful innovation company?
I find that 40% of all company launches fail by the conclusion of the first generation or the first iteration of management, another 44% in the second, another 15% in the third. You start to aggregate those numbers. What is the difference between those organizations that make it to their centennial versus those that don't? And clearly that's not an even split with only 1 out of 100 making it centennial. I've always been intrigued as to what are the characteristics of those that achieve that centennial, and how do those characteristics differ from those that not?
What was the state of the company in 2002? We were going through a kind of adjustment in the telecom business throughout the world. And Corning at that time had a real focus on telecom, but we were kind of a single horse sort of race. And so when that business started to struggle, it affected the company dramatically. So we were actually losing money as a corporation, and that's what prompted the whole focus on renewing our quality effort as a company. So the initial focus was we needed to get the cost of manufacturing down to elevate the profitability of the businesses that were mature.
And that's absolutely something that's critical to everything you do. But quality kind of has a much broader perspective at Corning, and we want every employee to be focused on not only making sure that their job, whether they're in an office environment, whether they're in field sales, whether they're in a factory, that they are performing their job and their process that they're running is a world-class process. And this is the interesting thing that we got involved with, is people have that thought, okay, yeah, quality is important. Well, what do I do about it?
We had a previous chairman, Jamie Houghton, who had actually started our quality journey about 25 years earlier, had a great tenure as CEO, and had taken the company to a really healthy position. And then given the situation we're in, he actually, which most CEOs wouldn't do in the world today, but he put his kind of reputation at risk and decided to come back. And so he came back into the CEO position, and because he believed so much in the quality effort as being a mechanism to drive success in a company, he wanted to renew that.
So we brought them the tools to enable them on an individual level, on a small group level, the number of people we have in this room now, on a plant level, on a division level, to tackle the most important problems that are facing them.
What are the team techniques and the team dynamics and the training that's going to be needed and the tools that are going to be needed in order to be more effective as we continue to work together?
And so our challenge is to provide the tools, the training, the methods that the corporation will use broadly, and the culture, to actually apply quality tools, quality systems and methods across the company to deliver lowest cost manufacturing, fast-paced innovation, effective commercialization, and so to actually create competitive excellence in all of our operational dimensions as a company. And this is the team that basically provides those services to our employees. We work to embed those skills and capabilities in all of our employees, and that's our job, is to make sure that happens.
You want to define what it is you need to do. You want to collect the data to really see where is the problem. You want to identify what the root cause of that problem is, and then identify a solution, and then put a system in place to make sure that that solution is sustainable.
So it became something that we used for the purpose of being a leader in innovation, for the purpose of being a leader in manufacturing, for the purpose of being a leader commercially. And so the continual improvement approach, setting kind of bold goals and expectations, using people and teams to leverage those outcomes, that became kind of our definition of quality, which we actually call performance excellence.
They have made more profit in the last 10 years than they had in the previous 150 years of the company combined. So their new continuous improvement system that they started developing in 2002 has done so well for them that it has made them one of the U.S. leaders in cash flow, in gross margin, and so it is important for us to realize they are extremely profitable. And yet, in spite of that, they do that in concert with a very high level of employee values. The worth, the dignity, the creativity, the contribution of every employee are really, really important to Corning.
Let me take you back to 1984. At this point, Corning faced catastrophe. We were really challenged as a company. We're going through a difficult period, bad financials. As you guys get into management positions, you will, in your lifetime, encounter a situation where the company's troubled, and you need some great leadership, and you need to pull the company back to a different position. We were faced with this in 1984. We did all the normal things. We basically changed the top leadership, put new people in there. Jamie Houghton actually came in as CEO. We did all the typical costs and improvement sort of stuff that companies do and took those actions. But in addition to that, our leadership wanted to redefine our basic cost capabilities, because you saw, Don showed you that decline part. One thing that's really interesting, I'll show you in a minute, we invented the light bulb with Thomas Edison. At one point in time, 98% of the light bulbs on the planet were produced on Corning machinery. You know how many light bulbs and lighting products we make today? 0. Because we were not the lowest cost producer. We were put out of the business, and therefore we were not there to evolve, which you talked about, and become a great lighting company. Okay, so we wanted to redefine our ability to be a low-cost producer. We wanted to have a significant competitive advantage from it. Wanted to leverage our total organization, all of our people. We wanted to become more customer and market focused. We also wanted a rallying theme around that leadership could get the company throughout the world to actually rally to. And we wanted our fundamental strategy was good. It was solid. We were an innovation-based company. However, we needed a passing gear. So we faced these things in '84. The answer was we were going to become one of the leading companies to engage total quality. So we were one of the first companies to become involved in total quality. We'll spend the rest of the next hour or so telling you how we emerged and how that kind of grew and changed over time. Total quality for us at that time was a commitment by leadership. We had QIT teams, quality improvement teams. We had basic problem-solving skills. We introduced all these things across the company back then. Quality events, annual quality events. We established our core values. I'll talk a little bit about this in terms of sustainability. And our primary focus was on product quality. So some of you may be confused by the word quality. You may think of it as being product quality or quality processes. Back in this time period, that was the major focus. It is not what we consider quality focus to be today. And we won the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award. So we started our journey that spanned over the next 25 years. Now, our goal is another 160 years. You heard Don talk about companies. So we are one of 6 companies that was on the original Fortune 500 that are still alive today in about 60 years. Okay. Every 10 years, the Fortune 500 are some of the 500 of the most powerful companies on the planet. Not all of them, but pretty powerful companies. A third of those companies disappear every 10 years. So to want to lead around for another 160 years, you got to be pretty special. That's our goal. And also, you need a moral compass. Our mission is not to improve our stock price. Some companies worry about that. We do not. I wish it was a little higher, so you might be able to help us there, go out and purchase some stock or something. But that is not our focus. The long term is our focus, because you'll do things in the short term to manage your stock price that are not healthy for the long-term history of the company. So we're looking to be around 160 years, which means we have a unique strategy. Now, first off, I want to talk a little bit about some trends, because you also said, well, we have a history, but do we have a future? And I think one of the things that we do as a company is we're continually conscious of what is changing in the world, because what makes you a competitive leader today does not guarantee you success tomorrow. And so you continually have to transform the nature of your company to be competitively advantaged based on what's going on in the world. And frankly, the world is changing dramatically every day. Some of the trends, we have a global talent pool now. So the diversity. I have 60 factories. 40 of them are actually outside the United States. I have 10 factories in China. I'm very familiar with the diversity and global nature of all the people in the world. There's talent everywhere. So there are great people in all of our factories. Real-time information. Right now, everybody knows everything about everything right now. And so, anybody can get technical information technical documentation, everything about all kinds of topics. So there is no information gaps that anybody has. They know what you know, almost instantaneously. Collaborative. The easy stuff's been invented. The stuff you are inventing now are complex systems that require the intellect and capability of a variety of companies. And so now where you used to have a single company that could create something unique, quite often now you're collaborating with other thought leaders in the industry. The great companies of the future will know how to collaborate. And many American companies today do not know how to do that well. Shortened shelf-life, things are moving fast. Products no longer sustain. These curves you had used to be years, now they're months. Compressed time cycles. Competitive leadership is multidimensional. You have to be good literally at every characteristic of running a business. Now, you can't win just by being exceptionally good at supply chain. And you have this organization, this global nature of the world trumps local companies. If you can't operate on a global basis, you're not likely to survive because you'll be competing on a global footprint. And then lastly, product life cycles themselves are compressing. So you have these dynamics. This changes the nature of what defines great companies as you go forward. This is what our quality process is about, is defining how do we create a company that is superior in these characteristics so that we continue to be a great company and we continually transform that. First thing is you got to grow. If you're not growing, you're in trouble, to your chart. And companies grow different ways. Some grow through innovation. Some grow because they're just really good at what they do and they're competitive leaders. Some mergers and acquisitions, some the supply chain dominance, some vertical integration, and on you go. Corning grows through innovation. 10% of our revenue is invested. By the way, 2002, we lost $350 million. We still invested 10% of our revenue in R&D. It's a long-term mindset around investment and innovation. We place priority on it. We also are kind of unique. Apple, companies like that, they invent things, but then quite often they don't actually manufacture them. They use a collaborative set of manufacturing companies to actually produce it. Corning, we make what we invent in general. Okay, so we also have to be great at manufacturing. So we're great innovators and we're great at manufacturing. When you're an innovation company for the long term, what happens is these cycles. You'll have a period where you're making a ton of money. If you don't have another curve come right away, you better be prepared for a drought. And if you're not financially stable enough to survive the drought, and if you're not lowest cost manufacturing to survive the drought, you won't survive the drought. And that's what happens to these companies, okay? So our strategy is to grow, but we understand what growing through innovation means, and we're good at it. In addition to that, though, you have to execute. And this is about once you invent it, you have to be the best on the planet at doing what you just invented. It gets back to my light bulb example. We gave that business up, and therefore we were not there to invent the next wave of lighting products. Now, what you do with execution is we've been working to get greater balance, so you need to have a variety of these curves in place all the time at different stages so that the company has some balance. We've been working very hard on that in the last 10 years. We have global footprints. You have to, 95%, you hear a lot of talk about manufacturing not being in the United States. That's kind of true, and we have to pay attention to that. But don't lose sight of the fact that 95% of the consumers don't live in the United States. So you know, you're going to manufacture stuff all over the place because, frankly, the customers are all over this planet. And so you'll be global in your nature, okay? And you have to be able to execute everywhere on the planet. Lowest cost manufacturing is critical. We strive to be the lowest cost producer in the world on what we make. And I won't give you the exact statistic, but vast majority of what we produce, we are the lowest cost producer on the planet by an amount that matters. And by the way, we have factories in China and Europe and North America. A lot of people believe that all of the lowest cost locations would be located in China. Many of our lowest cost manufacturing locations are right here in the United States. When you're doing technology, only about 10 to 20% of the cost is in labor. The other 80% is about the technology, the capital, the efficiency, the effectiveness, the materials. We are so good at that in the United States that we can be the lowest cost producer on the planet right here in the US. And then lastly is sustainability. If you're going to be around for 160 years, it can't be about the stock price. It's got to be about something else. It's got to be about a culture where you share something more than just today. And so we have 7 values that we live. We live them all the time. They're our moral compass, and that's what keeps us correct in terms of making management choices and decisions. 2 that I'll call out. 1 is quality. We know that quality matters. You have to be the best in the world at what you do, otherwise you can't sustain yourself over time. And then lastly, the individual is important as well. But you'll see things in there. So we believe in the next, I'll talk briefly about it, but the next 10 years, the individual will be the competitive advantage in the world. And therefore, we have, this is actually our performance excellence. We don't call it quality anymore, we call it performance excellence. And our goal in our quality program is to be the best performing company, the best competitor in the world at what we do: innovation, manufacturing, commercialization. And then lessons learned: you will drift, so it won't always be good. You got to have a plan to get yourself back, and you've got to be committed. This collaboration will be a big deal. This external reach will matter. You need hard measures. You need breakthrough measures. It takes a bit of courage as a leader to say to your boss or to the board that you're going to deliver breakthrough performance. But believe me, if you do that, people will surprise you in terms of their rallying to deliver those kinds of exceptional results. On the other hand, if you ask for mediocre results, that's about where you're going to operate. So you have to have the courage to have hard measures and have an expectation and a belief in yourselves that you can really be exceptional. In addition to that, you got to extend the boundaries. So you'll see in the presentations, it's not just about manufacturing. We're looking to be the best in the world in our commercial capabilities, our innovation capabilities, and just our corporate services. In addition to that, there are some core themes that don't change, but they do evolve. I will tell you that leadership, you read articles around, you won't need leaders, you'll have groupthink going on. Teams are powerful, but leadership still matters a lot, and it will matter going into the future because strategy matters, inflection points matter, measurements matter, organizing people and communicating matters. Leadership will always have a place, but what the nature of leadership and what great leadership looks like will change. In addition to that, the employees are the invisible advantage. I find now with companies, we deal a lot with like companies in China. You wake up tomorrow and they have similar technology. They've duplicated the technology in months. It's frightening. And we even go out and study other companies and we look at the emissions from the factory and we watch the trucks coming in and out. We estimate how much product they're making, how much they're caught. We get it right down. You know what we can't measure? How effective are the people in that factory at running the operations? How quickly are they improving? How fast are they inventing? How fast are they moving? You get a company that's global, that has the people working together and transforming and improving and changing and inventing at a rate faster, twice as fast as other companies, you win. And so the people in the future will be the invisible advantage. So if you think technology is the key, you're wrong. If you think innovation is the key, you're wrong. If you think just manufacturing excellence or operational excellence is the key, you're wrong. Because people drive excellence in all those areas. So as you go forward, the ability to get your people to operate globally and focus on strategy and be the best organizational element in the world to drive those improvements and changes is the key. So quality is the collaborative competitive advantage.
It's been really interesting for me. I started with Corning 15 years ago, and right from the beginning, I was brought into the quality journey within Corning, and I was trained as a black belt. And I was trained as a black belt for process improvement. And it's been exciting for me being a part of this organization and really seeing how powerful the methodologies and the tools that I'm going to cover tonight really have an impact on the success of the organization. So I'm going to go through just high level, real briefly, our quality history. Don already touched on that, so I'm just going to look at it in a little bit of a different view. I'm going to take a deeper look at the performance excellence model that Don showed you, look high level at our quality organization, and then also our improvement infrastructure. And then I'm going to take a deeper dive into the methodologies that we use at Corning and how we get the improvements that we see over time. And I'll take a look at some of our tools, our training, and then what our future plans are. So starting with our quality history, so really total quality really is one of our guiding principles within Corning. We want to really focus not only individually but in teams on what is important to the customer. So we're always focused in on what is important to the customer, not only external customers but our customers internally as well. Our quality program is really defining what it means to continuously improve. Always taking a look at our processes, always seeing what not only our manufacturing processes but our functional processes as well, and how can we continuously improve those. And then also ensuring that we have full involvement of all of our employees. So we're not just focusing in on our scientists and our engineers, but we're looking at employees from our senior leaders all the way down to our manufacturing floor. And how can we get everybody in the company involved in our quality efforts? So you look at our quality over time. So these are our phases of quality starting back in 1983. So for almost 30 years now, we've had this great quality journey. But over the course of the past 10 years really has been on our last phase that we're currently in now, and that's on performance excellence, where we're focusing in on the values, execution, and improvement. And that's really where we've made a turnaround within the company on how we've been so impactful on our improvement efforts across the board. So when we started our performance excellence journey back in 2002, 2003, we wanted to develop a balanced approach. So focusing in on our values, looking at execution, and then what are those methodologies that we can improve in order to continue our sustainability over the long term. So our approach to quality really has been in a team environment. We want our teams to really focus in on those rigorous methodologies and looking at the data in order to improve our processes. We want to look for opportunities that are significant to the business and to the function. We're not just focusing in on our manufacturing operations, but we're looking at all of our functions and all of our operations across the company and where do we have opportunities for improvement. So our quality principles, first one is meeting our customer requirements. So obviously, we're in business to satisfy the customer. We want to understand what is the voice of the customer, what does our customer need, and what are those critical to quality characteristics that we need to be focused on as we are building our processes. The next one is striving for error-free work. So taking a look at, what are our customer requirements and how can we deliver to them a product that is defect-free. So this is where we started looking into our Six Sigma efforts, and we looked to see what sort of continuous improvement methodologies do we need to establish at Corning in order to provide our customer with defect-free products. So taking a closer look at our performance excellence model, so Don showed this to you already. We have three legs of our model. The first is our values. So our values are really, as Don said, our moral compass. So we're living our values all the time, all around the world. But the work that we've really have done over the past 10 years has been around execution and improvement. And I'm going to focus here under improvement. We have four different areas that is under our quality performance excellence umbrella. The first one is around innovation. So as we're developing new products and new processes under innovation. And then the next is under our process improvement. So our current processes that we have. How do we use the improvement methodology DMAIC, lean as well, and then also design. So those are the four areas that we've really have focused on over the past several years to improve our processes across the company. It all starts with ensuring that we have the right strategy. So we have multiple businesses within Corning. All of our businesses have a business strategy. From there, we want to identify what are the right projects in order to meet that business strategy. We will go through a project selection process, and then from there, we will then determine what's the appropriate methodology that we need to use in order to be successful. And the methodologies I'll go through in detail in a little bit. We have innovation for creating something new when we're creating a new product or technology. We have design if we're going to create a new business process or a new transactional process. We have DMAIC if we're looking for defect reduction or getting to a deep fundamental understanding of our process. We use lean if we're trying to reduce complexity or reduce waste within our process. And then we also have very strong project management approaches for when we have other type of projects. Maybe it's a capital expansion project. Maybe it's a just do it project. We already know the answer. We just want to execute. So those are the methodologies that we live by within Corning. Our performance excellence journey, since we launched the performance excellence phase of our quality journey back in 2003, we've had a lot of significant financial results. Just this past year, in 2011, we've had $300 million of savings just in using those 4 improvement methodologies that I just touched on. Our innovation process, DMAIC, design, and lean. That's pretty significant. $309 million in a given year in our savings. Over the course of the past 8 years, we have saved the company $1.5 billion just in using continuous improvement methodologies. When we look at projects and teams and belts, so the green line are how many belts we have. Those are green belts and black belts. Those are people that are trained to the methodologies and to the improvement tools, and they're leading teams across the company. So we have over 3,000 trained belts, so a little bit more than 10% of our total employee population is a trained green belt or black belt. And then just from a completed project standpoint, in 2011, we had just slightly under 1,000 completed projects throughout the company that are helping to yield those savings results that we have. And projects can be anywhere from a project that's going to take a month at a time and maybe have 3 people on it, to a project that may run over the course of a year and have 25 people. So it really just depends on the scope and the complexity. So our quality organization, so Don's organization is relatively small. So we're a company that has 25,000 employees around the world, and this is our organization that's helping to drive performance excellence across the company. So we're a pretty small group, but we have a really far reach. We don't necessarily have a lot of people that report directly into us, but we have a lot of influence over the company. Don is the Senior Vice President for manufacturing, so all of our manufacturing locations don't have a solid line relationship into Don, but Don has a lot of influence over the work that's done across all of our manufacturing locations. So this is our organization, and this is for all of quality, so looking at performance excellence in the deployment of our improvement methodologies, and then also innovation as well. I mentioned before that we have a far reach. So we have embedded within all of our divisions, all of our operating divisions and our functional groups, we have what we call performance excellence champions. So these are people embedded within the divisions that have the ultimate responsibility for performance excellence within their organization. And they're helping to mold how that's deployed within their group with our help. So we have performance excellence champions within all the divisions. All of our plants have a champion as well, a performance excellence champion, so we have 50 plus of those around the world. We also have a group of about 30 master black belts. These are also individuals embedded throughout our organization that have the strong expertise on performance excellence and the tools associated with that. And then we have over 3,000 green belts and black belts across the company. All of these people are helping us to deploy performance excellence company-wide. And this has helped to make us very successful. You know, I always say when I teach my classes is that these are all of our cheerleaders out there. These are all the people that are out there doing the work. They understand the tools, they understand the methodologies, and they're the ones that are helping to yield those results. So our Performance Excellence Council is our division champions across the company. We have 6 operating divisions, and we have 7 staff functions that are a part of this Performance Excellence Council. So outside of corporate quality, we have 13 individuals that are really helping to drive this company-wide. And then I already talked about our site champions. This council, we meet every other month, and part of that is to ensure that, you know, what's coming from corporate quality, everybody's hearing the same message, but then it's also an opportunity for the divisions to work together. So even though every division is being operated under a different leadership team, we want to make sure that we have consistency in our quality deployment and how we're using performance excellence in the company. The mission of our Performance Excellence Council really is to provide that consistent focus of performance excellence. There's one language that's common across all of Corning, and that's performance excellence. And when we start talking about the methodologies and the performance excellence tools, everybody starts speaking the same language. And that's one of the missions of our Performance Excellence Council, is making sure that we have that consistent focus across the company. When we look deeper into how we organize our teams, we also want to make sure that we're consistent in how our teams are being organized and run across the company. We have our leadership team, and the leadership team could be a division leadership team, it could be a plant leadership team, it could be a department leadership team. But typically, a project sponsor will be a part of that leadership team. We have the team itself. The team will have multiple team members. We'll have a master black belt or a black belt associated with the team, and then we'll also have a green belt or multiple green belts associated with the team. You saw we had over 3,000 trained green belts and black belts. We had 1,000 projects that completed in 2011, so we're fortunate that many of our projects have multiple belts working on those projects. We also, associated with each of our teams, is we want to make sure that we are clearly identifying the financial impact. So we have a really close relationship with our financial function to ensure that all of our projects are aligned to a metric within their organization. With all of our projects, we want to make sure that our projects are having regular reviews. So we go through the different stages of our projects, and we have what's called toll gate reviews in between each of the stages. And these are reviews with our leadership team. We want our leaders to understand how the projects are progressing through the different stages, and we want to make sure that our leaders are aligned with the work that's being done. We have special training for our leaders to give them the background of the methodologies and the tools, and also provide them with what are the appropriate questions that they should be asking and what are the appropriate things that they should be looking for as part of the project teams and how they progress through the methodology. So we talk about the 6 Sigma methodologies. We look at our bell curve here, and in this case, we have high variation because our process is falling outside of the voice of the customer. All right, so our sigma level is going to be low in this case because we are falling outside the specifications. In this case, this is an ideal situation. So here's our customer specs. Our data is well within the customer specs, so we have a lot of room to move within that specification and still meet the need of the customer. So in this case, our variation has decreased and our sigma has increased. So when we talk about Six Sigma, we're talking about a process that yields 3.4 defects per million. We standardized on DMAIC, which is a well-known 5-stage process. We wanted to build common language across the company. Okay, many outside organizations were moving towards DMAIC, and they were having a lot of success with it. It's very simple and easy to remember, and it works. Okay, so DMAIC is really, it's a 5-step process, stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Okay, we have toll gates in between each stage where our leadership team is ensuring that we're on track as we're working through our projects. And it's a rigorous data-driven methodology. It's all about the data, making sure that we identify what our problem is, we've collected the data, we've gotten to a root cause, we've identified a solution, and then we've put in a system in place to sustain that. One of the things that I love about Corning's approach to how we solve problems is there may be 105 tools that you might learn in a class, but there could be 5 different tools to get you to the same answer. And it really just depends on the approach that the team wants to take. It depends on how you like to solve problems. So we don't necessarily tell you exactly how to do it, but we give you the toolkit, and then the team is given the ability to determine what's the appropriate tool and method that I need to use for the problem I'm trying to solve. Design is very similar to DMAIC. It's a 5-stage process, but in design, we want to develop a completely new process. And typically, we're looking at like a transactional type of process. You know, we're looking at a new way of onboarding employees as they come into the company. The 5 stages of design, we want to define, we want to establish requirements, we want to select our concept, we want to generate our design, and we want to implement the design. Still going to go through a toll gate process, and we're still going to use data. We're still going to use a rigorous approach. So all these methodologies go back to the use of rigor and the use of data. So one of the things that's very unique to Corning is Corning has developed a scalable approach. And so we've taken the 6 Sigma DMAIC or 6 Sigma design approach, okay? You've taken this approach where you've had a high complex problem, you've had a high impact on the business, and you've had multiple people that have been impacted. Now we want to get all of our employees involved. So what we've done is we've taken 6 Sigma DMAIC and we've developed what we call IDMAIC, which is individual DMAIC. This is anybody in the company can use the thought process and the tools to make an improvement. Okay? Every year, we have about 100,000 IDMAICs that are submitted across the company. Every employee across the company, so we have 25,000 employees, 100,000 IDMAICs submitted, so on average, every person in the company is doing 4 of these a year. And they're having ideas on how they can do something better. We had somebody in our headquarters building from our business services organization that works in the cleaning group that had an idea for how she can rearrange her cleaning cart in order to be more effective in her job. Okay, and that was her IDMAIC, and she did it herself. And that's the whole premise behind IDMAIC, is we want all of our employees to have that idea of improvement, and then we want them to be able to execute it on their own. And then they have ownership on that, and they get excited about it. And we have really promoted this over the past several years to really drill that performance excellence and that process improvement culture across the company. And then in the middle is what we call ADMAIC. And ADMAIC is, it stands for adaptable DMAIC. So really taking the balance between, here's something I can do individually versus here's something I need a cross-functional huge team for, and how can I get maybe 3 or 4 people working together to do a smaller project either within my work group or within my department, and then be able to have an impact. So this is something that is very unique to Corning, and we've been very successful with this. And we've applied this not only to DMAIC, we've applied it to design, and we've also applied it to our innovation process as well, having a scalable approach to innovation. The next methodology is around lean. So lean is really all about reducing waste, reducing cycle time. With lean, we want to be able to not only focus in on manufacturing, which typically when you think about lean, you're focusing in on manufacturing. How can you reduce the cycle time within manufacturing? But we're also focused in on our functional services as well. And how do we reduce complexity? How do we eliminate process steps? And the last is around innovation. So innovation, if we're trying to create something completely new, a new process or a new product, we have 5 stages within Corning's innovation process. Stage 1 is to build knowledge. Stage 2 is determine feasibility. Stage 3 is to test practicality. Stage 4 is to prove profitability. And then stage 5 is to manage our life cycle. Our innovation process has been around for years, but it's really only been the past 6 or 8 years that we have taken what we've been so good at for years and we've added some rigor to it. So we've added a little bit more structure to innovation within Corning. Each of the stages goes through then a decision diamond similar to a toll gate review to determine if the team is ready to move on to the next part of the process. Embedded within innovation are our streams. So embedded within each of the stages of innovation, we're looking not only at the market, we're also looking at product, process, and business case. So we have specific activities and specific tools that are used for each of these streams in each of the stages of innovation. Some of the tools that we have, so we have a lot of online tools to help our teams. The SRA is our Solutions Roadmap Assistant, which is really our online wizard to help teams manage through their projects. And we also have what we call iPlace for our innovation teams. Both of these are accessible through our website. It'll go through a series of questions to guide teams to the appropriate methodology. It's an online workplace for our team. And then we're able to, as a corporation, we're able to pull data from all those projects and be able to see how are we progressing along our journey. Same thing with innovation. We have what's called iPlace. Same thing, it goes in each of the stages. It gives you a list of different activities, and then it also gives you a list of tools that the teams could pull from in order to work on their activities. We offer training to every employee in the company. So as a new employee starting off, there's required training. Based on your career plan, there'll be different levels of training that you might need to go through. And then we also offer our training in multiple different formats, whether it's classroom or online through e-learning opportunities. We're now starting to look forward. What's going to continue to take us into the next phase of performance excellence? This is our new model that we're getting ready to roll out this year. You'll see we still have our values, still important to us. They're not going to go away. We still have our execution in our improvement. Don talked about how people are going to be that people is our competitive advantage moving forward. And so our focus really is on collaboration and transforming the way we do work. How do we build those relationships with our suppliers and our customers? What's the collaborative thinking and behavior techniques that we need to have in order to be successful? How do we continue to access that information that we need in real time, virtually around the world? And then how do we ensure that we maintain being a fast, flexible global organization? Okay, so that is our focus as we move forward into our next phase of performance excellence.
It's interesting, when I'm out talking to commercial groups or commercial leaders from Corning, I get a chuckle from them because they say, well, I'm a manufacturing guy and I'm here to tell you about how we can help solve your commercial problems. We did not create this in a vacuum, number one. We didn't jump all in and buy a packaged system from somebody. We looked around a little bit, saw what felt right, and then internalized it so that it felt homegrown to people versus, here's some other corporate mandate coming onto us. And I think that was an important thing at first too, was when we rolled out performance excellence, it wasn't a mandate. We didn't say you shall, you must. We said we think this can help you drive better business results. And then we kind of tried to have some quick early successes, and people said, yeah, wow, this stuff works, this makes sense. And then you start the ball rolling.
Thousands and thousands of companies have implemented Six Sigma and Lean. And for most of them, they do it in a kind of mechanistic way where they're following a recipe. And even at that, it works. But some people are like, they become the yo-yo ma learning the cello. They are the ones that take these basic fundamentals and create something beyond them.
One of the things that we're working on under the Performance Excellence umbrella, we're really focusing on two areas. One is in a commercial organization.
One of the problems we had with reaching out to the commercial community is that if you think about DMAIC is designed to reduce variation in the process. Not the best tool for trying to figure out how to get more share in the marketplace. Okay, lean tools, the elimination or reduction of different types of waste. Some value to a commercial person that might want to improve some of their commercial processes, but pretty limited. So we really struggled with what it is that fundamentally commercial people do.
I got engagement from at least 40 or 50 different commercial subject matter experts. And we went through and said, okay, if we had to prioritize the top 100 tools that are used, that are important to a commercial organization or processes, what would those be? Okay, contract negotiation, pricing strategy, account plans, customer segmentation, market growth analysis, and we prioritize those.
We actually created a commercial improvement process where you actually go through some stages to really wrestle with a very difficult commercial challenge, like how do I increase my share in a particular account? One of the things that we found is that commercial people do have some kind of intuitively good techniques, but they're typically not really good at using data analysis. And even when you're trying to increase share, it's worth spending time thinking about what it is you're trying to accomplish, making a kind of a scope assessment, using some analysis and tools to try to understand competition, understand the customer, understand the market, the need. And so we've actually built a system called SAILS. It's a 5-step process. One of the last parts of that is sustain, because as soon as you do something in a commercial environment, your competition immediately responds. Why not try to anticipate that response and make that part of your thinking before it even happens? And so we've actually created, we're kind of writing the book around a tool technique for commercial excellence.
I can go to this commercial excellence website and that tool's right at my fingertips. As it was before, each division maybe had stuff in a singular database. Maybe it was on some guy's thumb drive. Maybe it was in a spreadsheet on Bob's laptop. We just collected all that stuff, shook it, found the best nuggets, and put them on a website for folks to have quick, easy access to.
It's flexible, and I think one of the things that Corning has done is really has promoted the flexibility of it. And we don't stand over anybody and crack the whip saying, this is the way you need to do it, these are the tools you need to use. We give them a lot of options, and we teach a lot of the methodologies, teach a lot of the tools, and show the application of it in multiple different scenarios.
So on an individual level, this is going to help you with your job performance. You're going to be able to go grab best practices. We have lists of subject matter experts you can call and talk to. We have training plans developed. So this can help you perform better in your job. On a corporate level, hopefully it's going to drive better, it should drive better business results. It should drive better effectiveness out of our commercial organizations. It certainly should help with our mobility between divisions, because if we have our commercial organization working at a high level, there should be a lot of seamless mobility between units.
When you do projects, do you guys see a lot of scope creep or any issues usually with a lot of problems with making decisions? Or is it really, because you have such a nice streamlined process, when a product is scoped out and it's kind of figured out what you're going to go with, you don't make many changes and you're able to deliver on time? Or is it another way around and actually the whole model is just something different? I'm just curious how that works.
It's a combination of the two. We have plenty of projects that have scope creep, so we do have issues. We do have projects that never get to where they need to go because of scope creep. One of the things that we try to do is we try to make sure that teams have a very clear articulated charter when they start off, and that they continue to revisit that charter with their leadership team. And our master black belts, they help bridge that gap. So when a project starts getting to where it's moving towards scope creep, a lot of times that's when our master black belts will come in and they'll help the project team and the leadership team keep that project on track. But one of the benefits of having the process and going through the toll gates, it allows the businesses to take a step back and say, is this project even still a priority? Or should we just stop and launch something else? Or, do we really need to reevaluate what's needed as part of this project?
It's very important. Quality is not about creating a bunch of peripheral activity for employees to just do, another thing to work on. We focus our projects on those things that are critical to the achievement of our strategy to delivering lowest cost. That allows people to spend time on these projects because that's where their work is anyways. Mm-hmm. And so it's very core to what we expect them to deliver. That's very, very important. You can't create busy work. People won't do busy work. But if you're enabling them to deliver what they're being asked to do, then they'll use the tools and methods to deliver better results.
My question was in terms of collaboration. What have you found as good motivators or bad motivators to get people to collaborate on various types of projects?
So one of the things that I've seen as being a motivator, not even just for collaboration, but just in general, is recognition and highlighting the work that our teams are doing. So we're just starting down our collaboration journey, but we're starting to, when we see it being done well, we highlight it. So we have a lot of really great successes in collaboration just on the development of Gorilla Glass. So we're taking that story and we're taking that success, and now we're starting to communicate that more broadly across the company about this is how this team did it, and this is what it looks like, and these are different things that you can do. So I think, for us, it's been on communicating those successes, and then that motivates others to want to try to follow suit.
And just to digress a little bit, earlier I talked a little bit about, you guys are going to go into leadership positions. You're great engineers and you're taking this course because you also want to be great leaders and great managers. Leaders tend not to have a high enough expectation and belief in their people. We ask for too little. We have to have the courage to challenge people to greater expectations. People will live up to the level of our expectations. People are, they love to be challenged. It creates energy and excitement. It creates people feel good about what they're doing. They feel good about the opportunity and what they accomplish. So I just encourage you guys, leadership matters a lot, and having the courage to challenge organizations to great expectations is a big deal.
Yeah, setting those stretch expectations, which is what you do all the time. Setting the bar to a stretch, and people are they're gonna raise there.
Now my wife does have what she calls the giggle test. So one night I went home and I said, you know what, I got this idea. I'm going to challenge people to do this. And she laughed, and she says, that doesn't pass the giggle test. So when you do have stretch expectations, they can't be crazy. People have to see them as a possibility, but on the other hand, within that limit of challenge, it's really important to be out there a little bit.
Part of the hallmark of a successful quality initiative is its sustainability. Jim Collins talks about the flywheel effect. It should survive any one individual. Mr. McCabe was there. It seems like your quality initiative got some traction. All of a sudden, we're having exponential growth in the improvement. He leaves, it implodes, we bring him back. I'm not going to ask why it imploded after he left, but what's different this time? Do we not fear that the next time he departs? What happened there?
So great question. And so my take on it is, and Don's mentioned this a few times today, is the culture that we've developed with performance excellence, and valuing the people and giving the voice to the people and giving the tools to the people, and not creating a bureaucracy, but creating a culture of continuous improvement with easy successes at the beginning to start the ball rolling, and then taking on greater and greater challenges, so that the methodology, so that the tools that are being used, the people are saying this works, and it becomes a part of their everyday work life. So no longer is it a culture, what I call, when I was working in manufacturing plants, was the culture of the superstar. The process is broke. What do? Call Mike, he knows everything. Now everyone has the tools to understand how to fix the process, how to get it to be fixed the first time, the right time, so they can move on to other opportunities. So it's giving the voice to the people, having trust in the people, giving them the tools and the methodologies to create a broad sustainability of the effort, so it's not dependent upon Don or Kristine or myself.
So it's more institutionalized this time around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions?
I just had a question. How do you balance reward and compensation for employees who lead quality initiatives compared to, I guess, revenue producing work, like their everyday work?
So we spend a lot of time on recognition rewards, and we also have variable comp that's linked to our performance. So these accomplishments, a significant portion of our compensation as managers is linked to the achievement. We have very solid metrics. Every time I go to plants, I recognize teams in the plant. We have celebrations. We do annual celebrations as a corporation. So we're very busy trying to acknowledge the work of people and give them kind of physical recognition in front of their peers. And our compensation is tied directly into a lot of these outcomes as well. So there's a lot of ways that we stay focused on it. But I will say that I don't think that's why it works at Corning. I think that's important, but what we've achieved now is it is the way we work. It is the way we're successful. People know that they can achieve more and do a better job and be more successful in their lives by using these tools. And so they're kind of past that now, where we actually believe in these methods, and we're seeing the results, and so that's the way we work. But the rewards matter as well.
Push it to the next level. Talk 25 to 30,000 employees, depending on the business cycle, 3,000 belted employees, 1 out of every 10. What's the incentive to be 1 out of those 10? Because it seems to me you've just added significantly to your workload. So how are they selected? How are they compensated? Why would somebody aspire to be one of those belted employees?
So our belt classes have waiting lists. It's to the point where people, they want the belt. Every now and then you get somebody that wants it because they want it on their resume, okay? But the majority, they want it because they want to talk the language. They see their peers being on teams. They see their peers being recognized, not necessarily by money, but by communication. We do a lot of internal communications just on our website, on newsletters, on project successes. And so we get a lot of people that they want to do the same thing. So they're going to their supervisor saying, I want to be a belt. We're getting a lot more of our leaders that are coming into belt classes. So one of the things that Don has done is it's written into role profiles and into the decision analysis that's done as Don and others are selecting manufacturing leaders, that they need to have that as their skill set in order to get the next position. So it's seen as a value across the company. So people want to have that knowledge, they want to have that skill set.
Yeah. And we're here for you. Let me tell you something. You're starting your career, you're young, got a whole career ahead of you. You got to pay attention tonight, all right? Because let me tell you what your future can look like and what it should look like. When the first 20 years I worked 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Whatever it took to be successful. Manufacturing was a tough job. It was a tough environment. I didn't see my kids in a lot of their sports activities. I missed a lot of things in their times they grew up. And the reason I did that is because my processes had huge variation compared to the specification. They were out of control, and it was just hard work trying to manage that kind of a mess, okay? And then I finally begun to realize that by managing the processes, getting them in control, I got control of my personal life. And in addition to not having control of my personal life, I was successful in my career as well. So what we're talking about here tonight is not only great for companies, but it's important for you as an individual. This can be an inflection point for you to actually be a more successful leader, and have greater success in your life, and have a greater personal control of your life. This is important
So
stuff.
he erased one of the myths. One of the myths is the trade-off for a leadership position is your personal relationships are going to suffer with your family or your spouse. Maybe it doesn't have to be. We're going to go back here and then over to Amanda, please.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming on behalf of my classmates and everyone. Thank you for coming. I have two questions. The first question, you mentioned right strategy. I just wanted to know, how do you go by actually determining the right strategy, especially for a company that has been around for 160 years? And also, your focus is on quality. How would you be able to ensure that in a competitive environment, you don't release the product after maybe your competitors have released the product because you're focusing on quality? So I just wanted to know, like, how do you control that in terms of the release of the product so you actually gain the customers and not focus on quality, and that you miss out on, some customers?
The first part, so the strategy, starts at the corporate level. So for us in corporate quality, we're working off our one-page priority that's based upon the principles of protect financial health, improve profitability, and maintain the values. And then there's bullet items underneath that, which are defining where the MC, the executive leadership team, is kind of steering the aircraft carrier. And then we in corporate quality, and then the operating divisions and the staff divisions are taking that and building their individual strategies in support of the corporate strategy. And then it flows down even to our individual objectives for the year. So it's a tiered approach, starting with what's the corporation strategy for the year, and then how do we as individual units, as individual employees, support and drive to that strategy. Don, I'll let you take on that.
And just to clarify or color your second question, are you asking that in their quest for quality, in Six Sigma, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, does it delay the release of a product to market, and does your adherence to quality somehow give you a competitive disadvantage by surrendering first to market advantage?
Okay, another myth buster for you. Okay, doing it right is actually faster than doing it wrong 2 or 3 times, okay? So the real issue there, and almost in everything you do, but innovation, getting something to market, we find with our process that, first off, we're flexible, so there are different types of innovations. There's new, which does take longer, and adjacencies are faster. But in all cases, what we find is that when the team actually sits down, let me give you a very specific example. We used to get like a dozen scientists on a project. When we actually asked them after halfway through the project what it was they were trying to do, it was amazing. We had 12 different answers. They didn't, at the very beginning of the process, actually come to a clear understanding of what it was they were trying to accomplish, so that all of their efforts after that were aligned and working together. So these processes actually allow you to be more efficient, more effective, and faster, because you're not reworking it. And it's cheaper, by the way. And the toll gates are important because, innovation, only about 1 out of 10 projects actually make it. I mean, successful innovation is stopping at a reasonable point in time before you spend too much money. And so we also find with the toll gates that in these processes, we quit earlier and realize that it's not going to work. The business case doesn't work, the product doesn't work, and so on and so forth. So these processes are important because they actually reduce the failure rate. The cycle time gets faster, you're not wasting resources, you're successful more often.
Amanda?
I think you may have touched on this in the last question, but I hear you talking a lot about Six Sigma and the performance excellence in the plants and manufacturing. How early would you say it was adapted and really held on to, I guess, by the R&D and innovation organizations? Because, I mean, we're in the same situation where I feel like it's definitely starts at the plants and they're the leaders of it, but it has to come from R&D in the beginning. So how do you encourage that out of your developers and managers?
First off, it does tend to be something that starts in manufacturing. So the Six Sigma DMAIC is about process variation, and so it's a natural fit for the manufacturing process. You notice in Kristine's presentation that we have a different process completely for innovation, because the nature of what you're trying to do in innovation is completely different. And so we don't force fit DMAIC onto the innovation process. We have a customized process that deals with really effective innovation. What we didn't get a chance to talk about was commercial, because one of the problems we have with commercial adopting a process is exactly what Roger said. It didn't fit. I want more share in the market. These tools do not help me figure out how to get more share at a particular customer. So we've invented a whole series of commercial tools, like what do you do with a customer visit? What are models used for pricing? How do you do a customer plan? And then we've created a 5-step process. One of the things commercial people don't do is they don't use a lot of data and information. They just kind of go out and sell. And doing competitive analysis of price, there's a lot of data you could be more effective with. And so we've created a customized process for effective commercialization. So it kind of gets down to that slide with the right strategy, the right problem and process, and then you get to the right teams and the right solutions. And so we're very particular making sure we use the right methodology. But DMAIC is one that fits very comfortably into manufacturing, but we don't tend to apply that. R&D, the only place we use DMAIC a lot in R&D is if you have like a lab that does samples. They need to have very little process variation because they're turning the samples around and the samples have to be done right. You have to get the right information from the sample. But the scientists in their thought process and the creation process, they use the innovation process because it's completely different. Hopefully that answered your question.
So at what point do they merge? Because you can't necessarily have an R&D organization.
Yeah, so we have embedded within our innovation process, we reference DMAIC and continuous improvement activities, particularly in stage 4, when we're actually starting to bring it to manufacturing. Yep. And so we will, embedded right within the activities of the innovation process, we will then reference continuous improvement activities and the different tools and how to access a green belt or a black belt. The other thing, too, that we're starting to do more of is starting to take lean principles and then add them into our earlier stages within innovation. Because we want to be able to, as we're designing a new process, being able to design it and, with the most effective, build. We don't want to be designing in waste. So we're starting to do that more. We're not there yet. I think that for us that's still an opportunity because it is hard. It is hard trying to get that community in a mindset of continuous improvement when they are trying to be creative. But we are doing that. We do have part of our research group. We have a performance excellence champion embedded within our science community that is a part of the Performance Excellence Council. They still have goals from a savings standpoint that they need to live up to as well. So we're getting there, but they're definitely the last to come on board.
That's a great question. I'm sorry I missed that. We are trying to get, you guys are engineers, we're trying to get the engineers up the innovation process working with the scientists because engineers understand the downstream issues and realities, costs, process, those types of things. We're getting them up in stage 2 and 3, working with the scientists, anticipating those needs. We're getting scientists down to stage 4 and 5 because usually when you do get it into manufacturing, it's still not as good as it needs to be and there's still some invention. So we're trying to get very collaborative and we're blending it a lot. And it matters. It's a very important thing to do. It's a great question.
Yeah, so once they define the feasibility of the innovation and the commercial viability, it's someone out there wants it, and they start getting into the design for manufacturing process. That's when we want to bring the receivers into that team in the late stage 2 where they're making 1, into stage 3 where they're making 100, and start designing the manufacturing process at that point. So you're putting in lean principles, You're putting in some low-cost opportunities that maintain the quality, so that when we hit stage 4, stage 5, it's not a hand grenade over the wall of the plant, and you go, what am I supposed to do with this? It's a viable process that's going to get you at low-cost manufacturing from the get-go.
Two other quick things that are really a big deal in innovation if you're working on it, we're starting to discover. Prototyping early and getting customer engagement early are huge, because what happens, we like to kind of get it, we're typical engineers, we don't like to bring something to a customer that's not close, okay? The problem is that when we get it to them, we may have missed it completely. And so it's a complete restart. We're really learning now to take more risks, to get the customers engaged and involved in prototype early, and then you get those reiterative learning curve cycles going fast, and you get it right. That's another big thing to keep in mind with innovation. Just like you want the engineers up there, you want the customers up there too.
You know, before we go to my friend Alan, you mentioned engineering 3 or 4 times, and you're sitting in one of the foremost engineering schools in the world. We all work in an engineering environment, Commonwealth Edison engineering culture. Motorola's had some struggle in the evolution with that engineering culture. Do you think Corning being an engineering culture was a benefit to this process or a hindrance?
Well, definitely a benefit, yeah.
Because they understand the metrics. I mean, they've got to...
Yeah.
You have that rigorous mindset, so you're very methodical in your approach.
So the discipline. Alan?
So you did a really good job of the journey of Corning of the last 160 years and the strategy that is going to be played out in the years to come. But what do you think are going to be the challenges in the next 160 years of Corning? More than the short term, but in the next 160 years of the company.
So to start with, things are changing so fast. It's hard to imagine 160 years out. Just to look at the change in the last 10 years. So the pace of change is going to be unbelievable. Just as you look at that day of glass, I mean, the nature of that world will probably be here in 10 years, and look at how, and we think it looks like the Star Trek right now, it's just moving so fast. And people, that's why we're so focused on people, because the only thing that can keep up with that future is people. It's the only thing flexible enough, it's the only thing creative enough, it's the only thing that's engaging enough. And so organizations that actually have, and it's got to be global, the ability to work globally. We, real quick, we now have, we used to have a breakdown in Taiwan plant, and we'd put our MT&E engineers on the jets and we'd fly them over there. Now we got 8 video cameras on the machine. I can see it in my office in Corning. All of the process data is being kept live time. It's in a data warehouse. I can look at that on another screen in my office, and I can get on the phone and I can talk to the person, not only see them, but I can talk to them online. I can virtually be in Taiwan instantly. This is the way the world's changing for engineers.
Ben?
So back to Professor McNeely's question about engineers being a benefit. As you move towards this collaboration initiative in your quality initiative, do you expect that to be a little more difficult with engineers? Because I know engineers aren't exactly the most collaborative people. And how do you expect to have to face those difficulties and kind of tackle those when they come up?
I think the fact that we're trying to do it virtually helps in that. You may think that engineers may not be collaborative, but I think they are, maybe not face to face. So being able to do it over technology might help in that. I haven't really seen that as being a roadblock to us being able to work collaboratively. I think given the business that Corning is in, and given the fact that our plants are all around the world, we see people within the company that are pulling for how can we do this better? How can we work more efficiently together? So many people in our company, we're on the late night conference calls and the early morning conference calls, and we're working across boundaries. So looking for technologies to allow that to be more effective and efficient for us is really what our employees are pulling for. So I don't think the engineering mindset is going to be a hindrance to that.
And as long as we sell the point, which we've done a good job so far of, and the successes have shown it, that we're not trying to create bureaucracy, we're not trying to get them to parade to the corporate headquarters. We're not trying to add more work to them, to make their jobs harder, to make them have to stay longer. We're trying to get them to work smarter so that they have time to work on future visions, to work on innovations, get involved with innovations projects, to make sure that they fix the problems that are driving them nuts at night and not letting them go see their kid's soccer game. Get it fixed the first time so they can move on to more value-added things for the company. And when they start feeling that, that's when the walls of, well, I'm not doing it, I'm only doing it my way because my way is the only way I know how. Well, we show them a method that works to their strengths, working with data, but then makes their life easier in the long run, and that fosters engagement.
Well, I think the example Don just mentioned about having a process where you have video cameras on it that then somebody across the ocean can be able to see how that process is running in their office. I think that really plays into what engineers want to be able to do and have the ability to get involved in more of the day-to-day process operations when you can't physically be there. So having that technology and that capability, I think, is really going to be helpful to the engineers within our company.
You're in a generation that is very electronic, and it's a lot about touch screens and electronics and data warehouses, and you could be very happy sitting in your office analyzing things all day long, And I think the thing you just have to be conscious of is engineering actually is part of the real world. You have to go out and touch it. You have to go out and feel it. You've got to interact with people physically. And so it becomes a balancing act for you. But don't underestimate the power of Gemba manufacturing, being in the real time and being in the physical presence. So even though I think I'm really sharp at manufacturing glass, somebody's asked me questions in the office and I say, I've had that problem, this is the answer. And I'll go out and look at the problem physically and I go, oh no, this is different. So the physical presence matters. Don't forget that, because your generation is moving away from that a little bit, and boy, that's powerful as well.
One of the best answers are right there on the manufacturing floor with the person that's packing the box, because they're watching that all day long. Go talk to them. They know what's going on.
So actually, I wanted to answer this question a little bit. One thing I should let you know is that engineering education is not the same even as when you went through. I realize that you're fairly young students out here, but engineering education is changing quickly. And if you ask today's undergraduates whether they work in teams, they work in teams all the time in their engineering education. Here at Northwestern, we have freshmen, all of our freshman engineers go through 2 quarters of designing a product to a real customer's expectation with a team. They do it twice, go through all the way, and then they start over again, new team, new customer, and designing a product from start to end. So the kind of thing that you should be expecting from engineers in the future is that they can handle teamwork, they can handle communication, and you should be expecting that of us universities, and and as managers, you should be expecting that out of your engineers.
Just a quick question. Don, you mentioned that Corning started manufacturing the light bulbs, but then now they're making 0% because they're not the lowest cost. But you also mentioned that one of the goals is to be the lowest cost manufacturing. So how do you move from here to there? Is it only the technology, or is there something else behind that?
All right, so let me help make sure I understand. So how do we know that we're making the transition to lowest cost in terms of being able to benchmark competition or what that cost is versus where we are? Or,
yes.
First off, lowest cost is really fundamentally important because you need the cash generation, you need the profitability, you need to sustain your position in these things while you get a chance to reinvent. Because if you're not there, then you miss that opportunity. So we are very focused as a company. In the businesses we're in, we need to be the lowest cost producer. Now, initially, when I have plants focusing on lowest cost, I really don't care about the decimal point. Typically, I'm trying to get them to be in the ballpark of what we believe to be lowest cost. And so usually I'm looking for them to be 10 to 20% below a theoretically derived lowest cost. We have actually a model that we use to determine lowest cost, okay? And we put in there select rates, technology, cost and those types of things. So he's a theoretical model. As we get to the lowest cost position against the theoretical model, then we spend the money to go out and actually benchmark competition on a global basis and make sure that we've got it pegged correctly. So it's kind of an iterative process, but the fundamental issue is that it doesn't matter if you're 1% plus or minus. We strive to be the lowest cost by an amount that matters. I'm driving my factories to be 10 to, so we've got pricing pressure on the LCD glass right at the moment. You've probably read that's why the stock is down a little bit. You've read some on that. I'll tell you what, bring them on, baby, because we are the lowest cost. When there's somebody left standing, it's going to be Corning. And by the way, we're going to make money all the way through the process, okay? Because we're lowest cost. It matters. Okay?
And I'll state the obvious, and we talked about this at dinner. It's not lowest cost at the expense of customer needs. It's lowest cost meeting every customer need. That's the focus.
Well, gentlemen and Kristine, to the extent the term might be archaic, royalty, and the extent that if you used it, it'd be somewhat self-serving. But I think tonight we've been in the presence of industrial royalty, if you will. Your journey's been remarkable, and the fact that you took your time and energy to come and share it with us is remarkable. I remember the words of John Donne, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
One of the things I think is unique about Corning is companies have different visions on themselves. Corning's not a company where our goal is to optimize our stock price. We're focused on another 160 years of existence. What will drive that is to be focused on values and sustainability of the company, and that's our culture.
We provide training not only in a classroom setting, but also online. We provide it in 8 languages, so it's available to employees around the world. And then also just responsible to work closely with all of our divisions, not only operation divisions, but also our functional services to make sure that they have the resources that they need.
25 years ago when we started Total Quality, it was primarily a focus on product quality and product quality processes. But over that 25-year period, it evolved to become a very powerful process that we use as a company broadly in all the characteristics of being competitively advantaged as a major global corporation. And so we really focused hard on methodologies like DMAIC, design, lean, Six Sigma, to drive productivity and lower costs in those areas. We've had some stunning results in the last 10 years. We're actually the majority of our products made worldwide now. We're the lowest cost producer on the planet.
One of the things that we've been successful on is how do we as Corning work well within the company? How do our teams work well together? But now we're a more global company, so we have teams that we have people in one country and we have people in another country, and so you're working through time zones, you're working virtually. And that's been one of our obstacles, and one of the things that we're working on is how do we do a better job as a company collaborating, and how do we now bring the whole idea of collaboration under the performance excellence umbrella.
As we became better and better at that, then the opportunities began to shift toward really improving our ability to innovate at a more rapid pace, rapid prototyping, more collaborative work and innovation with customers and out in the market. And then also there's a lot of cost in a company associated with staff organizations and support organizations, and then commercialization is a big deal. You know, you can have lowest cost, but if you don't commercialize products effectively, then you actually lose the high end or the sales and revenue side. So we've expanded the last 3 years the same sort of techniques of involvement, engagement, and improvement systems in our innovation process as well as our commercial process. And we're working hard to improve the cost and productivity of all of the staff support groups as well.
It's really all about improving your process and eliminating the waste in your process. We've had lots of examples, particularly in finance. There was a project that we did in finance several years ago, and it was really on improving the closing cycle and taking, the time it takes to close your books at the end of the month, taking it from a 7-day process down to a 2-day process. And it was really all about looking at you know, what are our process steps? What are the things that people are doing on a regular basis during this closing cycle, and where can we eliminate some of the non-value-added work?
We have worked hard to get a broader portfolio of innovation activities coming through the company, both new as well as adjacencies like Gorilla Glass. In addition to that, though, we've worked very hard to be able to execute and maintain a strong position in the maturing or declining businesses that we're in. By doing both of those things, we're sustaining our position in our maturing businesses, so we're maintaining that revenue. And by the way, the cash flow, which is really important to fund the innovation. And we have a good pipeline of innovation. So actually last year was a record revenue year in the 160 year of the company. So we're finally getting the revenue and size of the company that will help us really be an important company on a global basis.
If we become the place and build the culture that is always about quality and always about getting the contribution of our people and always about developing value through people, that is the one permanent advantage that will not go away, no matter what happens to technologies and markets and so on. So as they look at the mandate that we want to live another 160 years, they're looking at what are we as a people organization.
Collaboration with other companies becomes something that will define the emerging great companies, the ability to work with other companies. The pace of change. I mean, products used to, you create a new product, you maybe had an advantage for 2 or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. Now it's a matter of months, and you know, competitors are there with you. It's no longer going to just be about technology or innovation. People will drive the innovation. They'll drive, and they're the only thing that can move that fast. They're the only element that can work globally. They're the only element that can bridge those collaboration needs. And so if you create a global community of people that have the skills and ability and the techniques and the alignment to strategy, you can become a competitive leader. We believe that people will become the invisible competitive advantage for the next couple of decades.